Imagine getting cheated on, kicked out of your own apartment, and then told you still have to pay her rent. That's what happened to me. I thought love meant sacrifice, but what it really meant was learning the difference between loving someone and funding their comfort. She wanted control, she wanted power, but when I stopped paying, I didn't just save my money, I saved my peace. This isn't just a breakup story. This is about the day I learned that walking away quietly can be louder than any revenge. My girlfriend has always been very controlling. At first, I thought it was just her way of showing she cared. You know, the little jealous things that make you think she must really love me. But over time, it started to feel more like ownership than affection. She would get upset when I didn't do things exactly how she wanted. If I washed the dishes, she'd complain that I stacked them wrong. If I folded laundry, she'd unfold it to fix it. She wanted me to go out more, be social, have a life. But the moment I did, my phone would start buzzing. Who are you with? Why aren't you answering? Why are you ignoring me? She'd call and yell until I left wherever I was, just to calm her down. I didn't realize it back then, but I wasn't in a relationship. I was in a constant test I could never pass. She told me to spend less time on my phone, but she'd scroll on hers for hours, liking photos of random guys she called just friends. She says she wanted me to focus on the gym, to look my best. But when I stayed longer than she expected, she'd accuse me of showing off for other women. I kept telling myself, love meant compromise, that all couples fight sometimes. But looking back, I think I was more love-struck than loved. I ignored every red flag, every double standard, because I didn't want to lose her. She was beautiful, confident, and when she wasn't angry, she could make me feel like the luckiest man alive. But that illusion started cracking the night. Everything fell apart. The night she cheated, kicked me out of the apartment, and somehow still had the nerve to ask me to keep paying her rent. It started like any other argument, pointless and exhausting. She accused me of being distant, even though I'd spent the whole week trying to make her happy. I came home from work that night with takeout from her favorite place, but instead of a thank you, I got an eye roll. She asked why I didn't get the sauce she liked, even though I did. I remember standing there, holding the bag, feeling small. No matter what I did, it wasn't enough. I thought maybe she was stressed, maybe she needed space. I didn't realize she was already finding comfort somewhere else. That night, I noticed her phone lighting up constantly. She kept flipping it face down, pretending not to see it. When she went to shower, I glanced at the screen just once, and my stomach dropped. The message read, "Can't wait to see you again. Last night was amazing." I froze. My hands shook. I didn't even know who he was, but the truth hit me harder than I expected. When she came out, towel in hand, I asked her about it. She didn't deny it. She laughed. Actually laughed. She said, "You're overreacting. It was just a moment. You're still paying rent, right?" That lie hit me harder than the cheating. It was cold, empty, like I wasn't even a person anymore, just a name on a lease. The next morning, I woke up to find my clothes already packed in garbage bags by the door. She didn't even look at me. "You should go stay with your friends for a while," she said, as if I was some house guest who overstayed his welcome. I just stood there, staring at everything we built together. The couch we picked out, the photos we took, the plant I kept alive while she forgot to water it. Now it all felt like props in a lie. She was already texting someone as I carried my stuff out. She followed me to the door, arms crossed. "Don't forget to send the rent money," she said without blinking. "Your name's still on the lease." I looked at her, really looked. The woman who once cried when I was late coming home now couldn't care less if I ever came back. I didn't argue. I didn't shout. I just left. Because sometimes silence hurts more than words ever could. I sat in my car that night with nowhere to go, realizing that love isn't supposed to feel like a job you get fired from. That was the first night I slept in the back seat of my own car. Days passed, and she started calling. At first, I thought it was guilt. Maybe she realized what she'd done. But no, she wanted rent money. She said, "You're still responsible. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." I couldn't believe the audacity. She cheated, kicked me out, and now she was lecturing me about being an adult. I stayed calm. I told her I'd think about it. Even though I already knew what I was going to do, I didn't owe her another cent. I talked to the landlord, explained the situation, and found out something interesting. She had tried to switch the lease into her name alone. She wanted full control of the apartment, but still expected me to pay for it. That was my breaking point. Not the betrayal, not even the humiliation, but the entitlement. That kind of selfishness doesn't come from love. It comes from someone who's used to getting away with everything. So, I decided not to fight. I decided to prepare, calmly, quietly, because the best revenge doesn't come from anger, it comes from peace. The funny thing about pain is that once you stop running from it, you start thinking clearly. I stopped answering her calls. I started working extra hours, saving up, keeping to myself. Every message she sent came with more attitude. You can't just leave me hanging like this. Or, you're ruining my credit score. I used to jump at every notification from her, hoping to fix things. Now I read her words like they were spam. I didn't block her. I wanted her to see that silence, to feel it. Meanwhile, I focused on rebuilding. I found a small studio, nothing fancy, but it was mine. The first night I slept there, surrounded by unpacked boxes and cheap furniture. I felt something I hadn't in months. Peace. No yelling, no manipulation, no walking on eggshells, just quiet. She didn't know it yet, but her control over me was already gone. I wasn't her safety net anymore. I was the lesson she was about to learn the hard way. A week later, she texted me a screenshot of the lease agreement, followed by, "If you don't pay, I'll take you to court." I almost laughed. This was the same woman who used to cry if I didn't text goodnight, now threatening me over money. I stared at that message for a long time, not because I was scared, but because I finally saw who she really was. She didn't love me. She loved what I did for her. I wasn't her partner. I was her provider. I called the landlord again, explained that I'd already moved out, and asked if I could remove my name. He sighed. "You'll need her signature," he said. I knew she wouldn't sign. Why would she? She wanted to trap me, make me keep paying while she played house with whoever she cheated with. But I didn't panic. I started reading, researching tenant laws, talking to people who'd gone through the same thing. Turns out, if a tenant abandons the property or stops living there, they can't legally be forced to pay the other's share. I was already halfway out the door emotionally. Now I just needed to make it official. I smiled that night for the first time in weeks. She wanted to play legal games? Fine, I'd play smarter. By the second month, she was panicking. The rent hadn't been paid, and the landlord started calling her. She called me 15 times in one day. When I finally picked up, her voice was trembling, not from sadness, but anger. "You're ruining my life," she shouted. I calmly said, "No, you're just living it without my money." That silence afterward was priceless. She wasn't used to me talking back. For the first time, she realized she couldn't control me anymore. 2 days later, she showed up at my new apartment. I don't even know how she found it. She banged on the door, yelling for me to be mature and take responsibility. I opened the door just long enough to hand her a small envelope, her share of the lease agreement, and a letter from the landlord, confirming she was now the sole tenant. She looked confused. "What is this?" she asked. I just smiled and said, "It's freedom, yours and mine." Then I closed the door. She screamed outside for a while, calling me every name in the book. But I didn't care. I leaned against the wall and laughed quietly to myself. Freedom has a strange kind of silence. No arguments, no walking on eggshells, just space to breathe. I started sleeping better, eating better, even smiling more. Sometimes peace feels like revenge, especially when the person who wronged you can't find it themselves. She kept trying to provoke me, calling from unknown numbers, sending emails pretending to be sorry, but I never replied. Ignoring her became my favorite form of payback. A friend of mine told me she had moved in with the same guy she cheated with. I didn't even feel angry. I just said, they deserve each other. Because honestly, they did. Two selfish people trying to outsmart each other always end up in chaos. And sure enough, within weeks, she started posting cryptic messages online, sad quotes, breakup lyrics, attention-seeking stories. I didn't engage. I was too busy moving forward. I started volunteering at a local gym, training kids who couldn't afford memberships. For the first time, I was giving without being drained. That's when I realized I hadn't lost her. I'd escaped her. It happened about 3 months later. I ran into her by accident at the grocery store. She looked different, tired, stressed, not the confident woman I once knew. She gave me this fake smile and said, "You look good." I nodded and kept walking. But before I could leave, she whispered, "You really left me to deal with everything alone." I turned around, met her eyes, and said softly, "No, I just stopped dealing with things that weren't mine anymore." She looked stunned. That quiet, simple sentence hit her harder than any argument could. She tried to say something else, but I'd already walked away. That moment felt like closure, not because I wanted revenge, but because I finally saw her face when she realized she no longer had control over me. Her regret wasn't about love. It was about losing the convenience I used to provide. And that's when it hit me. Peace isn't something someone gives you. It's something you take back when you stop paying rent in someone else's chaos. I didn't hear from her for weeks after that grocery store encounter. Then, one night, my phone buzzed with a message that made me pause. It was from her, a long paragraph about how everything was falling apart. The guy she cheated with had left. The landlord was evicting her because she'd missed 2 months of rent. And the apartment, the one she once bragged about, was now being listed online. She wrote, "You don't even care, do you?" And for the first time, she was right. I didn't. I didn't wish her harm. I just didn't wish her anything at all. That's the real power of healing, when the person who once had control over your emotions no longer stirs anything inside you. I sat there for a moment, staring at her message, remembering all those nights I stayed up trying to fix things, to prove my love, to be enough. Now she was the one waiting for an answer that would never come. I put my phone down, closed my eyes, and smiled. Because her downfall wasn't my victory, my peace was. I moved on quietly, got a better apartment, started focusing on my work, my friends, and myself. I went back to the gym, not because she wanted me to, but because I wanted to feel strong again. Every rep, every jog, every quiet night alone reminded me that peace doesn't come from being loved. It comes from being respected, especially by yourself. Some nights, I'd look back at how much I tolerated the yelling, the gaslighting, the guilt trips, and I'd almost laugh at how blind love can make you. I wasn't stupid. I was just hopeful. But hope in the wrong hands becomes a weapon. Now, I use that same energy to build instead of chase. I've learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't exposing someone, is outgrowing them so completely that their existence no longer affects your mood. One afternoon, months later, I drove past our old apartment. The windows were empty, the curtains gone. It looked hollow, a perfect reflection of what our relationship really was underneath all the pretending. I sat there for a few minutes, not angry, not sad, just thankful. Because if she hadn't cheated, I probably would have kept paying for a life that wasn't mine anymore. I would have kept trying to build peace with someone who thrived on chaos. As I drove away, I realized something powerful. Sometimes you have to lose everything to remember your worth. She thought she was punishing me when she kicked me out, but really, she freed me. And when she demanded that rent money, she gave me one final gift. The reminder that I never needed her approval to live a full, peaceful life. Love isn't control, it's freedom. And now, I finally had mine.